Hi, my name's Nikki. I'm the Obsessive Bookseller, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to review the first three novellas in Seanan McGuire's Wayward Children series. Tor sent me an early copy of the seventh book coming out in January, and it had been one that I'd been eyeballing anyway. I'd been trying a couple things from this author. I'd really wanted to get into her more. So I've been working my way through the series with a couple of buddies on Fantasy Buddy Reads on Goodreads, and it's surprising me how much I'm enjoying it so far. I mean, you start with a boarding school, and right there I'm on board because I love school settings, and this one has an element of world hopping. It's a portal fantasy, and essentially these kids visited other realms and then were forced back to our world, and then nobody believes them. Everybody expects them to go back to exactly as they were before they had these experiences. As you can imagine, a lot of them really struggled with that. So this woman who at one point visited other worlds as well created this boarding school, a safe haven for these wayward children where they can come either wait until their door opens to their world again or figure out how to reacclimate back into society. And I love that. There's an element of psychology to this series that I really love picking apart the different characters and figuring out how their experiences on these other worlds are shaping how they are behaving in the present day. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. That kind of extra level of mental engagement for me is always something that makes me love the series a bit more. Since they're novellas and they're relatively short, I figured I'd do a group review for the first three and kind of talk about each one individually instead of giving you one a week every week. Every Heart a Doorway, book one, did a really good job of setting the framework for this world. I really love the almost fairy tale-like quality to the writing style and voice. It definitely set its own strong tone right out of the gate. So I wasn't really sure what to expect with this first one. The story could have gone in a number of directions. I loved learning a little bit. You get to go to some meetings with the character, and I always love when you actually learn along with characters in books. And then it took on kind of a weird murder mystery element, which was not unwelcome. It raised the stakes in this world and gave a lot of characters a little bit more depth, which I really appreciated. So, overall, as it was just a little self contained novella, the first book was an excellent introduction to what was to come. Book two, Down Among Sticks and Bones. Of the three, this was my least favorite one so far, for a couple of odd reasons. First off, it takes two characters from the first novella and expands on their past. So, right there, I already knew where we were going to end up, and I've mentioned before that when that happens, my engagement in the story is a little bit less than usual. And I thought we spent way too much time before they even found their door into their world. And once in the world, like we have this new realm that we've never been to before. I felt like the world building aspect of it was very underutilized. You didn't really get a good picture of where they were, and it felt very thin, as in, like, we're in this castle, but as far as I can tell, there's only three people in the castle. There's this village, but as far as I can tell, there's only a couple people in the village. It didn't feel like a real, robust world. And as I mentioned, my psychoanalyzing these characters based on everything that they were saying and doing and their type of profile, their history, I don't feel like they behaved the way that all of the evidence would indicate they would near the end of the book. Some very odd things happen, and my buddy read group actually had a lot of fun picking apart the scenes and like agreeing generally that a lot of it didn't make any sense. This would be a lot easier if I included spoilers in my reviews, but I'll link our discussion and you can open the spoiler tags if you want to see what I'm talking about. But yeah, so an inconsistency of character, a little bit of thin world building, and more of the same story stuff, which I already knew about. All of that collectively made for a novella that was good, but could have been a lot better. And then we get to book three, Beneath the Sugar Sky, and I'm back on board with the series. We're back in the boarding school. The author could have taken a lot of different directions. I thought the first novel would have been the introduction to these worlds, and then each book would focus on a specific world but tell the backstory to all these characters. And I was like, well, I really don't want to dive in to more of the past, but in this novel, it managed to take us into someone's past, but doing it in the current day and involving a whole bunch of other characters, new characters, one of which, Cora, I loved. And it gave a more rounded story, more sense of adventure, and I felt like the characters behaved a lot more in line with their profiles. And a very important side note, the author's writing and the way she describes some of these situations is from a very strong body positivity standpoint. And I'm just thinking of all the younger girls who might read this series and really appreciate the fact that some of these girls might have insecurities in their bodies, but there are ways to overcome that by focusing on the things your body does well, things you love about yourself. And it's not in a preachy manner. This is very much what I got out of the book. I just really love those snippets of body positivity, especially in the fantasy world where women's bodies are used at the whims of all the characters, and that's how things are in the fantasy genre. So it's really nice to see a breath of fresh air where we're challenging the status quo of that. Aside from personal meaning that I got out of the book, it was still an awesome read. I really enjoyed the traveling to this new world. There are nonsense worlds and logical worlds, and my preference is most definitely going to be the logical worlds. I don't have any patience for the nonsense stuff, which is kind of fun because I could see which crowd in this boarding school I would most likely hang out with. And yes, the author could have gone a number of different directions. I happen to be really on board with where she's going with this, and I can't wait to read more. I'm really glad to finally be bringing you a positive book review. I'll be gearing up for the release of the 7th one in January, and yeah, hopefully I continue to like them just as much. Luckily, they're short, so even if I don't like them, at least I won't be spending a ton of time on them. But so far, so good. I might even actually purchase them for my collection. And now we get into the other books you might like section. This is not a young adult series, but based on the younger characters and the school setting, the most comparable books that I can think of are mostly young adult, starting with Hex Hall by Rachel Hawkins. If you love school settings with a little bit of magic, this is perfect. This is such a fun series. I'm not going to apologize for any of the tropes because I'm sure it has all of them, but it really worked for me. It was so much fun. And to this day, one of the best school environment settings that I've read, and I loved it. Next, The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, one of my all-time favorite books. These kids don't have magical powers, but they have awesome abilities, like the ability to tell when someone's lying. So things that people could actually be able to do. And these gifted kids are taken to the FBI's safe house, and they help them solve serial killer murders. It's so cool. Of all the books I'm recommending, I think this one sings most closely to the Wayward Children for me so far. Nice Dragons finished last, book 1 in the Heartstriker series by Rachel Aaron. I'm picking this one because Wayward Children strikes me as a really good transition novel between young adult and adult fantasy, and that's what I feel this series does incredibly well. And it's kind of like a hodgepodge of genres. In that one, there's also a heavy mystery going on, there's a portal fantasy, so world exploration, but then it's a little bit contemporary in dealing with the drama at the school. So, yeah, good pick for that one. An Accident of Stars by Foz Meadows. This is a adult portal fantasy. And the first part of this novel kind of reminded me of Wayward Children, and that's pretty much where the similarities ends, but I do appreciate the fact that you get to explore another world in here, and I found some of the characters a little bit comparable, so that's why it made the recommendations list. And then the Edge series by Ilona Andrews. It's kind of like an urban fantasy slash portal fantasy hybrid. Oh, you know what? I just thought of one even better. So the Edge series is a good recommendation if you like the otherworld aspect, but the Innkeeper series by them is probably an even better recommendation as a comparison novel. The inn that this girl runs is kind of like a safe haven for people traveling from other realms. If your favorite part about the Wayward Children is the boarding school aspect, then I think you'll find this a pretty good recommend as well. Love that one. So yay, a bonus recommendation. Thank you so much for joining me on this book review, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.